Now, those are the headlines of the hour, but we start this hour in the Indo-Pacific. China's Ministry of Defense has strongly urged the United States to cease its arms sales to Taiwan, warning that such actions could negatively impact the development of military relations between the two countries. In a statement, the Chinese Defense Ministry expressed its dissatisfaction with the United States' support for Taiwan's defense capabilities, which it views as a violation of China's sovereignty. The ministry further confirmed that it has lodged formal protests with the United States government over these sales. In response, China reiterated its commitment to safeguarding its sovereignty and territorial integrity and warned that it would take all necessary measures to protect its national interests. This comes after the US approved a $330 million arms sale to Taiwan, including fighter jets and aircraft parts, marking the first such transaction since Donald Trump took office in January. The Pentagon stated that the sale would enhance Taiwan's ability to maintain the operational readiness of its F-16, C-130 and other aircraft, helping to address both current and future security threats. We're now joined by Ross Feingold. He's a political analyst and he joins us live from Taipei in Taiwan. Ross, thank you very much for joining us. Pleasure to have you here on the program. How might Taiwan take these comments from the Chinese ministry, expressing dissatisfaction with this huge purchase of military equipment from the Americans?
This is just part of the normal give and take back and forth between China, Taiwan, and the United States. The United States has always sold weapons, or in this case, it's spare parts, it's not new weapon systems, to Taiwan, and the United States will continue to do so. Now, it's possible that Trump may have delayed making these kinds of announcements over the course of 2025 in the hopes of reaching a trade deal with China, and he didn't want to disrupt that process, but he had his meeting with Xi Jinping. They did reach some agreements on trade issues. They're still negotiating a lot of the specifics, but maybe the Trump administration now feels it has some flexibility to proceed. Now, this is a relatively small sale, actually. It's only a little over $300 million US. And the expectations are that in the coming weeks or months, actually, the Trump administration is going to approve a very significant weapons sales to Taiwan valued in the billions of dollars. So the big sale is really yet to come. And of course, China will react negatively to that when it does happen.
Yeah, and what can you tell us about Taiwan's current defense capabilities? And of course, how Donald Trump has approached the situation, that tension between China and Taiwan?
Historically, President Trump has taken a similar approach to that which he's taken with other countries, whether that's NATO members, South Korea, Japan, and others, which is to say you're not spending enough on your own defense. Now, in the first Trump administration, Taiwan purchased approximately $20 billion of weapons from the United States, and actually many of those have yet to be delivered so many years later, which does cause some frustration here in Taiwan. But the expectation, again, is that the Trump administration will continue to sell billions of dollars of weapons to Taiwan. And this is not just about helping the profits of U.S. weapons manufacturers or creating jobs in the United States. There actually is a genuine concern that Taiwan has underinvested in its defense over the past 25 or so years, and Taiwan is trying to catch up. To be fair to the Taiwan government, they are seeking a much larger defense budget from the parliament here in 2026. So the government does recognize the need to significantly increase its defense spending given the nature of the threat from China.
Yeah, and Ross, and Beijing has warned that this deal will damage US-China military relations. What does that mean? Cancel dialogues or something more serious?
Yeah, usually that's what it means. It does mean cancel dialogues, and Well, what happens after that is the United States typically will go back to China and ask to resume those dialogues, and China will say no for quite a long time until they can link it to something else, whether that's trade or other issues. So yeah, it's possible that China could turn off some of those dialogues, but given the tensions that exist between the two sides, one could legitimately ask, what do those dialogues really achieve? Although those dialogues do have their supporters as well. It's the typical justification is to say that it reduces the likelihood of misunderstandings between the two sides. In the past, there used to be things like port calls. U.S. Navy ships would visit Hong Kong or even ports in China. But over the past few years of tensions, that has disappeared as well. So most likely, when it comes to military relations, China will cut off certain dialogue platforms.
Yes, Ross Feingold, do stay with us as we have further updates coming out of the Indo-Pacific. And China's Vice Premier He Lifeng and German Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil have agreed that the two countries should strengthen commercial ties and bring an end to months of trade tensions between the world's largest economies. Klingbeil met He in Beijing on the first visit to China by a minister from Chancellor Friedrich Merz's government. Ties between the two industrial powerhouses have been strained over Chinese export curbs on chips and rare earths in particular, causing major disruptions for German firms. Klingbeil says that Germany addressed the topic of Chinese overcapacity in key sectors such as steel, solar and electric mobility during talks at the China-Germany Financial Dialogue, an event which is held every 2 years for German and Chinese officials and corporate executives to exchange their views. Ross Feingold joins us once again. Ross, Germany, of course, says that it wants to end trade tensions with China, but can that realistically happen while Beijing still holds all these export cards on chips and rare earths, for example?
There are a number of issues in this trade relationship that make it contentious, including the ones you just mentioned, such as the export of rare earths from China to Europe and specifically Germany. This issue of overcapacity in Chinese goods that are often inexpensive, which doesn't mean that they're low quality, but they are competitively priced, and it's difficult for European manufacturers to compete. And then that has to be balanced against some German companies, not just large companies, but also small and medium enterprise is in Germany, which have such an excellent reputation around the world. They have a market in China as well. So it's not just the big companies like a Volkswagen, a BMW, Mercedes, or a BASF that have big business in China, but lots of German companies want to sell to China, and for a long time their goods have been in demand in China. So it's a tough balance, and then there's the pressure from the United States and pressure from other European partners as well. But who's ever in power in Germany, it doesn't matter if it's the left or the right, when they try to decouple or make moves towards decoupling, they immediately hear it from the German exporters who say we need to be in China, we actually like this market, and we make money there.
Yes, Ross Feingold, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World, and thank you very much for taking the time, of course.